What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the shop. Today we're back on the Mustang. We've got some fresh boxes. Let's take a look, see what we got. Got stickers, we like stickers. I feel like I got the wrong order here. Supposed to be front suspension parts. Which means a set of control arms, let's see what the invoice says. Roller front suspension kit, 65-66 Mustang. Mustang steering rebuild kit. And in box number 1, so the full suspension kit should have pretty much everything but shocks, I think. So we got upper and lower control arms, we got coil springs, we got strut rods, we got roller spring perches, and then we got sway bar. First thing I noticed when I grabbed these boxes off the porch is that they're way too small for a sway bar. But we have the first box literally has 5 sets of roller spring perches and 5 sets lower arm camber shims. No, that's 7 sets. Jeez. I'm not sure I'm not sure what the shipping guy was thinking, because the packing list here clearly has everything like it's supposed to be. It's got my name, got my address. I'm a little confused. This box has a set of roller spring perches. Ah, there's the problem. I didn't even pay attention to that. So this box has my address on it. This box has somebody else's address on it. Well, probably should have looked at that first. Put that back together for the next person. And not all my stickers. We gotta have at least a couple stickers here. All right, this looks more promising. We got steering tie rod ends. We got a set of roller spring perches. We got a set of coil spring rubber isolators. Y'all can't really see what we're doing here, can you? All right, we got lower control arms. We got upper control arms, so looks like we're missing. I think that's might be what got screwed up. We should have another box with coil springs and sway bar in it, and we do not. So these are factory upper lower control arms, but Open Tracker does a real good job kind of making these a little special. These have roller bearings and everything's just a little smoother, a little more freed up. You get better travel. Not really better travel, but you get better suspension movement. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to make a phone call tomorrow, because that other box was supposed to go to Georgia. Not even close. All right, well, I'll get that box taped back up. Get it shipped back to whoever. All right, so what we got to do is we got to get all the old junk off of there. It's got to go. I think first step, we'll go ahead and pop these shock bolts off. The good thing about the shocks in this car is they're pretty easy to just, they're completely blown too. The shocks are easy to just drop in from the top at a later date, so we don't really need those, so to say. At least not right now. We're definitely gonna need them, but we can worry about that later. Okay, I think we'll take the wheels off. Probably just gonna kind of do maybe one side at a time. Now we'll take the wheels off, we'll get all the steering off, and then we'll do one side at a time on the suspension. Okay, went ahead and took the other side off. I never had this, well, I haven't had this side off since it's been in the shop. All right, this is gonna be fun. I like doing suspension modifications and suspension work, but I do not like changing out wore out and rusty factory original, just the nasty stuff. I don't like doing it. All right, we gotta get tie rod ends off. Somewhere down in there. Is a cotter pin. You just love when you pressure wash something and then it's still just caked everywhere. Give it a little spray of some Freol. What size is that? 11/16. 11/16 will work. A little more Freol down in there. Y'all ever use this stuff? I like the smell of it. I think it smells better than Blaster. It kind of smells like paint. I don't know if that's a good thing, but this fork is probably a little bit small, but we're gonna see what we can do. Nice. I don't know. I think we'll just leave it off on that side and we'll go ahead and rip the rest of this apart. Broke it a little bit, but that'd be all right. All right, we need to get, we're reusing the spindles. So we can cut the brake lines. Yeah, we're gonna reuse the spindles. So I think I'll go ahead and take the hub and the bearings out. Those still look pretty nice, but take the hub and the bearings out, and then we can take the whole backing plate and the brakes and all that off, get down to the bare spindle. It'll be easier on the car versus doing it on the table later, because we need to get the spindle stripped all the way down. We'll clean it up, probably throw some paint on it. And I just thought of something. It'd be a good tech tip for y'all watching, but obviously I didn't do it this round. But if you'll start whatever side, if you'll start with whatever side is on your closest to your toolbox. As you can see, mine is on the other side. But if you do the opposite of what I do and you start close to your toolbox, then you got less walking and back and forth while you figure out what tools you need, and then when you make it to the other side, you just carry all your tools to the other side. But you can be like me too and just do it the hard way. A bunch of steps back and forth, because some days you can remember, or some days your eyes will tell you what size a bolt is. Other days you have to grab 20 different sockets out of the drawer and it ends up being the last one you chose. I feel like that's one of those days for me. I don't believe I have ever touched these bearings. I don't know that I've ever greased them. They actually look pretty nice. But we'll give it a freshen up and a new set put in here. because we need to make sure we got a good set of bearings and we're not going to have any problems. Which the ironic thing is, we'd probably be better off using these old bearings. And we honestly might. I might just take them apart and clean them up, because these are probably 30 years old at least, and I guarantee you they're better quality than the stuff you buy now. But we'll clean them up and inspect them at a later date and see what we're working with. But what I was saying about, we want a good set of bearings because we're going to attempt another crazy adventure. Pretty similar to what we did last year when I built the OBS. Where we put this rig back together on a somewhat small budget, just changing what we need to change. Maybe drive it once or twice and then embark on another 2,000 plus, because why not? And honestly, what can go wrong? The fun part is it's currently July 8th, and in order to make this said road trip, we need to leave by, I think it's like October 9th. They're all kinds of wrong in the dates, but early October. Because me and my wife have to be in Wisconsin for a friend's wedding. And I know what you're thinking. Why don't you just fly? Why don't you rent a car? Why don't you take another vehicle you have that runs and drives? And we don't know how much time we have on this rock, so I'm gonna enjoy whatever time I have while I have it. Now, I don't know that we'll do a full video series of the road trip like we did last time, because well, that was a lot of work. I don't know that I really did a good job at putting all that together in terms of, like, it was really just thrown together. Because let's face it, I get a vacation once a year. I enjoy filming and doing this stuff, but it's work. Like, it's a lot of work to film and edit and do all that, and part of me wants to do some of it and also enjoy my vacation. So we'll probably film some of it if we get the car done and actually able to drive it up there. Probably won't film everything, but we'll definitely film anything that goes wrong, or the highlights, I guess, both good and bad. I mean, y'all don't want to watch a video on me driving to the airport, jumping on an airplane, and flying to Wisconsin. That'd be boring. I wouldn't watch that. I mean, I would watch it if, like, I own the airplane or somebody owned the airplane, but no, we're not that level of high class around here. It's a little bit out of our budget. In fact, I've already blown the budget I had to get this car out of the weeds and get it driving down the road, because I didn't fully understand or know that the suspension was as bad as it was, and that I parted out half the car, and that it's also been sitting 14 years. So yeah, we're gonna have to work some overtime and probably sell some parts so that we can have a chance at finishing this thing. Should I just cut the thing? Yeah, we're just gonna cut the brake lines. They're crap anyways. We're not gonna reuse them. We're gonna try real hard not to reuse the well, we're not gonna reuse the brakes, that's for sure. But I'm gonna try to get a set of front disc brakes to put on here. We'll see if that's in the budget when we get a little bit closer. I honestly had this delusion that I was gonna be able to like put this back together for $2,500 because I was picturing in my head what it was when I literally pulled the motor out in high school 14 years ago or 16 years ago or however many years it was. I can't even remember. A long time. But I didn't factor into account all the other stuff. And between the front suspension and a few parts we had to buy for the engine, we're at the budget. But budgets are really just like they're not really a one-time thing, you know. It's like, oh, this is the budget I'm going to do. We're not talking about a monthly household budget here. We're talking about a project budget. So if you set a goal, how much you want to spend, and you quickly realize that you're going to spend more, it just means that you got to make some other sacrifices and sell some stuff or work harder or adjust your plans a little bit to make it happen. So that's the new plan. We're going to adjust the old plan and we're going to make it happen. Now, we're still going to cut some corners. And by cutting corners, I mean like we're not going to half-ass anything necessarily. Especially nothing like safety related. But there are some things that we could do and that I would like to do, but we don't necessarily need to do. You ever get a cotter key stuck, cotter pin, wrap your pliers around it and just twist. Keep it real tight, and it'll roll right out. And it'll be A-OK. And then you got to get your second set of pliers. And you got to untwist it. And then we're in business. Alright, we're going to try to knock the spindle off. No idea what size any of that is. It looks to be about a 13/16. I do know one thing, I will take covered in grease over no grease, because no grease means it's rusted and it's not coming off. At least not without a fight. Alright, so we got that loose. Now we can try to pop our spring out. That should be a 9/16. I think there's a nut on the bottom side, so this might not be super easy. Guess it's gonna be super tight. That's always nice. Oof. I guess I think we're going to do this the easier way. We'll pop all the lower stuff off and then we'll get in the engine bay around the engine that we just put in that I said would be a lot easier to do this if the engine wasn't in. But I don't listen to myself, so the engine's in. We're gonna have to get in there and get the 2 bolts or the 2 nuts that hold the upper control arm. I think if we get all the lower and the spindle off, we could pop those 2 bolts and this whole thing will come out. I think. But sometimes when I think, it turns out terribly. So 50-50. We'll see what happens. What size bolt is that? 7/8 or a 3/4? It's gonna be the 3/4. Okay, we gotta try to get the lower control arm bolt back in there out. Should be fairly easy. No idea what that bracket's for. Oh, that was real dumb. So the bolt's kind of going in backwards. The bolt's right there coming backward to the front, and it's gonna hit the cross member. So now we got to take the cross member out, which sucks because the last time I did this, maybe the motor mounts will help, but or the motor being in there even though it's not bolted down. The last time I did this, the frame rail sucked in just a little bit, and it was a real pain to get the bar back in. Let's just see. We're gonna need the big boy. Oh, that's a problem. Yeah, it's a big problem. And the problem is that the nut that's inside the frame rail seems to be stripped out. Unless I'm missing something here. Nope, definitely not missing nothing. There's no window in there. There's no window cut on the inside of the frame to get a wrench on that. Which means that sucker's not coming out. So that means that we get to cut the bolt head off. As I can tell you one thing that ain't happening, I'm not opening the can of worms of cutting the bolts off that cross member and then having to figure out how to get figure out how to fix those nuts that are inside the frame. I mean, it's possible, but I want no part of it. So, we can't get that bolt out because there's a welded nut or a captured nut or something inside the frame. Ain't happening. So I knock this bolt back. We're gonna cut the head, knock it out. We'll be able to put the new bolt in forward to back, which, well, let's be honest, that's the way that should happen. This is all kinds of wrong. Bolts always go front to back, in my opinion. When you're grinding, make sure you got your safety squints and your safety mittens. Remember, safety third. All right, that's out the way. We gotta get this big giant bolt out right here. One up in there. Whatever size that is. So if we did that right, we should be able to pop that bolt. I'm not sure if the new kit come with those bolts, but I guess we will have to cross that bridge whenever we get there. Spindle off. Control arm out. We can take the sway bar out a little bit later when we disconnect it from the other side. What size y'all think that is? 15/16 or 7/8? I'm gonna go with 7/8. And I said we were gonna use a wrench, but since it's in that little pocket, I think we can use the ratchet and a socket. Definitely not 7/8. We're all wrong. It's 3/4. Oh, it's actually relatively easy. I was worried they were gonna fight. I don't know who put those bolts on there, but it's absolutely insane. So we're gonna do the next best thing. When in doubt, cut it out. We're replacing all of it anyway, so what's the matter? You mean all I had to do was pry on it a little bit? We still got the problem of the shock in the spring. Maybe though. I can take the shock off the roller. Okay, so lessons learned for the other side. The shock is holding most of the spring in. Should have known that. So we should really try to get the shock, or get the shock out when we do the other side. reasons like that. I'll be honest, I really didn't think that that spring would have been that compressed in there. I guess it makes sense, but I don't know. I thought with it drooped all the way down, it'd be a little bit different. But I guess not. It's all right. Nobody got hurt. Look, this moves about as easy as the new ones, and this one's kind of wore out. The roller thing, though, is... she's stuck. All right, we got a problem, though. Never mind, false alarm. So, the kit comes with this Shelby drop, basically. We're gonna bolt that up there. I gotta do a little research. I'm not sure if we bolt it up and drill above the holes or bolt it up and drill below the holes, but this is a guide plate. We're gonna adjust these mounting holes one way or another. It's gonna lower our ride height. It's gonna get some of our suspension geometry a little bit better, so they say. I guess that was an old school trick that Shelby did to his race cars. Surprisingly, the bump stops are not bad. But it's like 8:30. It's freaking 100 degrees out here and miserable. The swamp cooler's about out of water. So I think it's gonna be it for me tonight. And I will come back tomorrow and we will get the other side stripped out. I'll figure out where this goes, what direction. We'll drill these holes and then we'll start bolting up what we can bolt back up. And we will go from there. So I will see y'all in just a few seconds for my tomorrow. All right, we're back on the Mustang. The rest of my parts showed up. So we're gonna try to get the rest of this front end put back together here. Figured out this bracket, or this template here goes with the arrow forward and these small holes down. So that's gonna drop our lower control arm a little bit and also shift it back, which I guess is gonna adjust it's gonna lower it a little bit and also adjust I believe the caster just a hair to make it handle a little bit better. At least that's my understanding. Kind of hard to use a drill in the rolly chair. Pretty thick metal because we're going through the sheet metal and then the box that this sheet metal pocket, which is a little bit thicker than normal sheet metal, and then there's that support brace that's welded to it. Okay. I'm gonna have to go to town. I'm gonna have to go to town and get the lower control arm bolts. We could sit here and take the other side apart, but like I said earlier in the video, I really like to do this kind of one side at a time because I don't do this every day. I've honestly never done this on a 60s Mustang. Well, I take that back. I have, because yeah, I have done it. It's just been 15 years probably. And I have forgotten half of it apparently, so I'm gonna go to town and get some bolts, and I will see y'all. We'll get back at it when I get back. All right, back from town. So we're doing a bunch of stock, lightly upgraded stuff. So I mentioned that these are they're not roller, they don't have roller bearings in the upper control arms, but they have been like reworked on the bushings to make them move really smooth, but still be tight. The lower control arms actually have ball bearings in here. So that should be a nice improvement for handling, because the suspension is going to move much more freely, but not be loose. We don't want it loose. We're going to need the rubber hammer. Nice and snug. Well, that bolt's not quite long enough. I got the same length bolt, and I bought a lock nut, but it's not quite long enough to reach the locking portion of the nut. I do have some regular nuts and lock washers, so I guess we will have to go that route. Ooh, you don't get that with the other ones. They got like misalignment bearings too. That's kind of nifty. Probably put the spindle on. Now y'all about to make fun of me. We're gonna put the nasty dirty spindle on because two reasons. One is I'm being lazy. Reason number two is it's literally covered in undercoating and grease, which is the best rust preventative there is. So rather than me take all of that off and then have to paint them, we're just gonna slap them back on, because let's face it, ain't nobody but me and you gonna see it. Okay, now we gotta try to get the spring in there, which should be better because they are much shorter. I think it's ultimately gonna lower it like an inch. I think these springs are an inch shorter than the other springs. Wrong side there. Put the isolator on this side and then see what we're gonna do to fit this. I might need a spring compressor. I feel like, I don't know, the last time I did of course I can't fully remember, and I don't think I had to have a spring compressor. The other nice little upgrade is these spring perches. So the old one here, it's just a rubber bushing down in there, which is wore out. But you can see how like stiff and frozen they are. I'm sure they're not like that when you just replace them or they're brand new, but look how smooth that runs. Again, it's got roller bearings in there so that as the suspension cycles up and down, there's no unevenness. It's all going to be smooth and roll really easily. These are also made in the USA, which is pretty cool. Pretty sure it's as easy as that. And I think with the strut rods that run to the front here and kind of turn this lower single arm into more of an A-arm style, I didn't spend the high dollar money and get the fully like easy to adjust ones, but I'm pretty sure, well, I say I'm pretty sure, I haven't really looked into any of it, but based on what I'm seeing here, these are the factory ones. So the factory one just has a hard stop, couple of bushings. This one's threaded longer, that has a nut on there. We got a set of bushings and another nut. So I think we have a little bit of adjustment here. So we can actually like really dial in our caster and our wheel center. I mean, the downside of that is the more you got to adjust, the harder it is to get everything right. But also the more you have to adjust, the closer to correct you can get everything, and you don't kind of settle for something. So that's pretty nice. Well, that kind of sucks. I got the cotter pin hole going right into the spindle. Oh, I did the same thing, guys. I'm an idiot. There we go. Now then we can turn this sideways to get it out the way. Well, we got an extra nut in here, which not real sure. That's a lock nut. Well, I can't find any real info on the interwebs. It doesn't come with instructions, but the bars have this nut already on them. We have a lock nut, and then we have this kind of serrated edge nut that is real narrow, so I'm guessing it's a jam nut. So to me, what makes the most sense is we have a lock nut to go on the outside towards the front. We then have an adjustable nut for the inside, but really no way to lock it down. So I'm going to put this thinner serrated edge jam nut on first, and then that can act as a lock nut for the back side. Keep that from moving. I don't fully know where to set these. I'm just gonna kind of measure off what the old ones are, and just set them close to that. We can adjust later, but I think that's a decent starting point. Excuse Excuse me. So this kit is a slight upgrade because these are Delrin like ball type bushings, so you're gonna get a little bit of misalignment there, whereas the factory rubber bushings are, I mean, they're good for stock stuff, I guess, but they're not gonna be much more than that. And I'm not a fan of polyurethane bushings really anywhere. I don't like them. I don't know, they squeak over time. They tend to wear out over time. But all of these upgrades I'm doing here are very minor, stock-like, just to increase our performance a little bit without going out and spending thousands of dollars. That doesn't look right at all, does it? If anything, we should have some rearward caster. I mean, I guess we could pull that out. I don't know. I'm gonna back these jam nuts up a little bit and push this forward. We'll figure out how to align it later. It's getting pretty late tonight, and all I want to do is just get the rest of this on here on this side. And well, there we kind of have it. Loosely mocked up, brand new roller front suspension. Still got to figure out the brakes, got to tighten it all, figure out how to get it aligned. Still going to need shocks, but we'll worry about that later. I kind of want to go with some like double adjustables, but man, they're expensive. So I'm just going to kind of wait till the last minute and get the rest of this car put together, and we'll see what the budget allows. But overall, that's pretty much how you change out your front suspension in your 66 Mustang. 64 to 66, I guess, but we're gonna get this passenger side swapped out. Try not to bore y'all too much with the front end side over here, since you've kind of already seen the process of the driver's side, so we'll speed through some of that. But obviously, if we run into some issues or some sketchy stuff, we'll slow the camera back down for that part. But that's the plan for today. Just try to knock something off the list or make a little bit of progress somewhere so that we get one step closer to the goal, which is to back this thing out and start driving it down the road. Got a little bit of corrosion there. Not much though, it's not bad. I don't see any other damage to the spindle, so it's always a good sign. Let's get our brakes out of the way so we can a little better visibility in here. do you think? You think the shocks are still good? I'm gonna say no. Okay, all we gotta do is pop the nuts off on the inside there. So I'm gonna do that. And y'all can stay out here and see if this thing just decides to like pop out. Cameraman never gets hurt, right? So we'll just zoom way in there. Don't try that at home, kids. Get you a spring compressor. And if you do try it at home, you didn't see it from me, and stay the heck out the way. The downside of doing that way is the shims go everywhere and you have no idea. All right, next up we'll drill for our Shelby drop, our new control arm brackets. Start putting it back together. Passenger side done. I'm gonna leave everything loose for now until I get all the steering done and I figure out what all the alignment specs should be so we can get it somewhat close and then start test fitting tires. But that's gonna be a little later in the build. We'll go ahead and go up real quick and swap out the sway bar. All right, before we put the new one in, let's see what we're working with here. So, factory one, basically 5/8. New one, a little less than 1.8 inches. So, quite a bit bigger. Should make for much better handling. we're not gonna be able to put the lower washers in the nuts because you can see how this angle of the sway bar and the angle of this is not right because the suspension needs to compress. So I'm just gonna leave all that loose for now. Tightening all the suspension and doing all the finish of the install. When we get it on the ground, then we can address that kind of stuff. But she looks real nice. Nice and brand new. A little bit of shiny mixed with the old car rust. I like it. Logo's nice and visible. Not that anybody will ever see it, but stay tuned. We're gonna have more to come on this project as we try to finish it up. I'm kind of tired and done for the day, so thanks for stopping by the shop and hanging out. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Like if you like it, dislike if you dislike it. Don't really care to me, but if you're not subscribed and you want to subscribe, see more stuff that I'm doing in the shop, then feel free to subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. Thanks for the support and honestly the motivation, because I'm not necessarily making these videos for anybody in particular. I mean, I got family on here that likes to see what I'm working on, and this is a good way for them to do that. But in a lot of ways, like just having it in the back of my mind that I should come film is, you know, it's motivation for me. Like, oh, somebody might like to see this. Maybe I'll get out there and do something today, even though I don't really want to sometimes, but there's a level of extra motivation there. So thank you all for that. And just thank you for the support in general, I guess. Hope y'all have a great day, and we'll see you on the next time.